Hi everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and I am back again here at the very end of the month of honor, because we have finished up Star Trek TNG's Kahless the Unforgettable. So, if you've been following the channel, you'll know that I've started this month by reading the Day of Honor saga, a big book consisting of 6 books, talking about the Klingon Day of Honor, various different areas covered there, from TNG to DS9 to the original series. Very fun stuff. But I felt that what I really needed was more honor than what that was giving me. And I found it with Kahless here. I didn't know what I wanted to read. I just had a couple of days left in the month of honor. And I looked across at my shelf. And it just jumped out at me like that. Boom. And I said, that's the one. And it was a perfect fit, too. It turned out, during the time I was going to be reading this, I was feeling a little down, a little ill. So it gave me a little extra time to read, which is always nice. And I was able to burn through this thing in just a couple of days. I started it back on the 29th. So this is the story, the true story of Kahless the Unforgettable, written by Michael Jan Friedman. Very great Trek author. So let's jump right into the back cover here. For 1,500 years, the Klingons have revered him as their first emperor, the legendary warrior who united their people and taught them the meaning of honor. But the truth of his incredible life has been shrouded in myth and fables until now. A clone of the original Kahless now reigns as emperor, but the discovery of an ancient scroll throws the legends into doubt and threatens to tear the Klingon Empire apart. Surrounded by treachery and rumors of revolt, this new Kahless can trust no one except Captain Jean-Luc Picard and Lieutenant Worf of the USS Enterprise. Well, that's about half of the story, I would say. The real meat of this story is what is set in what they refer to as the historic, the heroic age, I believe, here. Yes. The heroic age. So, this is basically 2 stories weaving together into one. And he splits it up perfectly, chapter by chapter by chapter. So you're starting with the story beginning here. Well, they give you a... Let me skip to the beginning here. They give you an epilogue that kind of starts out with the finding of this ancient scroll. So one of these clerics from Borath has found this ancient scroll that they've been excavating. This was apparently the road to Sto-Vo-Kor, and Kahless made one of his last stops here on this road to Sto-Vo-Kor. So this cleric happens to be around while they're kind of clearing some bushes, and just luckily happens to look down and spot this ancient scroll, which sets off this whole huge thing. So that's the epilogue, and then it jumps back and forth from there between the modern age and what's going on with the current Klingon Empire, and then going back to the heroic age with the original Kahless 1,500 years ago. And both stories are told well, but I found myself really enjoying the heroic age story, and would love to actually see or just read more stuff like that. I was really interested in that. So the story starts out with Worf having, I guess, heard about these scrolls. He is on a holodeck simulation watching Kahless forge the legendary first Batleth, where he has to climb to the top of this volcano and pluck a lock of his hair and throw it into the fire, and then he pulls it out again. Then he's got to go back down the volcano and throw that into some ice, and that's how he makes the first Batleth. At least that's how the legends are told for Klingons. So he's watching this because this scroll that has come out has basically purported to tell the true story of Kahless. And like the whole time I'm reading this book, I'm like, are they going to like tell me what it says in this scroll? And I'm like, you fool. That's what the heroic age is. So like, I think you're kind of meant to take the heroic age part of the story is actually like a telling of the scroll. Maybe not everything, but something of that matter. So the heroic age part of the story starts out with Kahless, who is a war chief of the warrior, or the kind of the, I don't call him, the emperor of the land at the time, who is a tyrant whose name is Molor. And Kahless is one of the war chiefs, but he has some bit of honor in him at least. And when he is sent to do a kind of like a tax collection on a village where they either pay or get burned out, he decides to let them live. When that happens, he's kind of running with one of the sons of Molor at that time, and he goes against Kahless, and Kahless has to fight and kills one of the sons of Molor. And of course, kind of like sets the whole him going against him thing. But it just goes to show that Kahless wanted to do the right thing. These villagers couldn't pay the taxes. They didn't have no food. They didn't have no money. What would be the point of burning them out? There's no honor in that. So this is like the beginning of the real Klingon honor, So, and it's the beginning of Kahless's split from Molor. But at first, he's just an outlaw. He's not a hero. He's not trying to go out and be like a defy Molor and take him over. Now, you go to the modern age, and how am I going to tell this story? I'm going to have to tell it in parts because I can't split chapter to chapter. It would be way too weird. So we're going to stick with the modern age story for a little bit, and then we're going to jump back into the heroic age story. So the modern age story, you have Kahless on the homeworld, just kind of doing his own thing. And as one of the things he likes to do is kind of put on a cloak and go out incognito into the land. And he goes to this old bar where he like a lot of kind of old Klingons like to frequent. He knows the food is good, the blood wine is good, so he goes there. In going there, he runs into a couple of suspicious looking dudes. And being a wise and cagey Klingon, he kind of keeps an eye on them and keeps keeping an eye on them. And he can read lips as well. And eventually catches wind of a conspiracy. So he takes this conspiracy to Gowron. Gowron, of course, doesn't take him totally seriously. He's like, one of the things that's come out in this time is the scroll has come out kind of saying, Kahless is not everything that the legends say he was. So now Gowron's thinking, well, he's just saying this to kind of, because of everything that's happened. So he doesn't take him seriously. Kahless has to look for help elsewhere. And where else is he going to look, as we learn from the back cover of the book, but to the Enterprise and Captain Picard and Worf. So through some kind of back channels, he's able to get a secret message to them, and Worf and Captain Picard agree to meet with Kahless on the homeworld, which is pretty crazy, but, Picard being the arbiter of succession, he's going to be up for a mission like this. Very little stuff from any other TNG crew. You got like a tiny bit of Riker here where he's like, well, maybe you shouldn't do this, Captain. And he's like, well, I'm going to do this. And he does it anyway. So they meet up with Kahless on the homeworld, and Kahless tells them of his conspiracy theory, and they agree to go with him to the bar just to kind of see. I mean, at first they're like a little suspicious too. They're all going on just the word of his lip reading, and that's like the whole thing, So they're a little suspicious at first too, but they agree to go with him, and they go to the bar, and they see everything that's going down, and they see the two people being suspicious talking to each other, and they agree with Kahless now. So they go to leave the bar, and they're jumped by a whole bunch of Klingons. I think 6 Klingons or something jump out. They hold their own against them. Even Picard's able to hold his own against the 2 attackers that come at him. And eventually, some other Klingons see the unfair fight, and they kind of join in to chase off the attackers. But what this means is that Kahless is kind of like found out. They know that he knows that he knows that they know. So, they set this trap to get him. Not good now that Picard and Worf are involved as well. So at this time, they're going to seek out the help of Worf's brother, Kurn, because they're going to need some help to get this done now. They find him basically he's a governor, and he has to do inspections of things. He's doing an inspection of a local academy. So they find him there, and they at first are greeted well, and Kurn is like, yeah, I'll be willing to help you. but Worf knows that he's not telling the truth. So they confront him about it, and he reveals that there's kind of like a more deeper plot going on, an affair between these two high houses, and he doesn't want to get involved because it might throw some things into chaos. It's kind of nonsense, but it kind of fits the bill for like kind of keeping the peace in the council and the Empire. So they don't really like that, but at that point, chaos strikes, and the academy that they're at is hit with these fire bombs, and like basically just turns into a scene of chaos at that point. They're running into the buildings, they're taking out dead and burning Klingons, and I think a couple bombs go off. Picard is able to go in there and save some people. Kurn is in there saving people. Kahless is saving people. They're trying to save as many people as they can. Just about like when everything's done and like the whole building's burned up, and Picard's like, no, you can't go back in there. Worf rushes back in there again, and he saves like 2 more people. I think one of them is already dead, and then he collapses on the ground. And I think that's where we'll kind of pause this modern age story for now. So that's where the modern age story has taken us so far. And my notes were pretty good for a while, but then when I started reading like crazy, I just kind of lost count. So my notes are gone, and now we're to like just this nonsense portion of the page with words and things going on. But now we're going to get into the heroic age story just a little bit here. And that, I said, is, for me, was probably like the best part of this. The story, the original story of Kahless, and not like the legend of Kahless, but what really went down. So after he killed, I think his name was Starad, which was Molor's son, he was basically on the run at that point because Molor's army was huge, and he had like a small gang of outlaws kind of going against him. They find a peaceful town that they run into, and they are able to well, first they actually come to like a river full of bathing Klingon ladies, and they're all like really excited to see these Klingon ladies, and all the Klingon ladies run away except for this one who pulls out her sword and is basically like, what you want? Is about to take all of them on, doesn't care. And of course Kahless is like, whoa. He's very intrigued and is very excited to see about who this person is. So he meets who this is, and this is Kayleen. And Kayleen is the daughter of the local Lord, I think, Varrock. So the group is invited then to basically come dine with Lord Varrock and his table. And Lord Varrock takes them in and is very excited because Lord Varrock does not like Molor. He's very anti-Molor. Pretty much everyone's anti-Molor. But, the Klingons get to dine with Varrock. They feast, they drink blood wine. And they are really hungry too, because at this point they've kind of been on the run for a while, so they get lots of blood wine. Now, at this point, Lord Varrock is kind of pumping up Kahless to be like the rebel leader, to defeat the king and throw down Molor. And Kahless is like, no, that's not how it's going to be. But there's another character in this story who's very important, and that is Morath. And Morath is basically he's a member of like the outlaw group from the beginning. He's always been someone who's been very quiet. He never said very much, but Kahless always had a deep respect for him. He's a very, very good warrior, very strong warrior, and just kind of has always held his own, with the outlaw group. So Morath, very important character here. Morath, when Kahless is basically saying, I don't want to be a rebel king, I just want to get away and survive, is kind of giving him side eye. It's like, come on, man, no, that's not what he doesn't like that. So, but they still enjoy the feast and they enjoy the blood wine, and then Kahless goes to take some air afterwards and is snuck up on by none other than Kayleen, who appears to try to attack him and snarls at him. But that's just how Klingons tell each other that they like each other. So Kahless and Kayleen basically betrothed themselves to each other there upon the bank of a riverbed outside of the castle. Of course, Kahless tells her, I can't stay here. I have to leave. My plan is to go into the mountains. We're going to go into the cold for a while. And we're going to stay there. and hide out, and hopefully, Molor is going to forget about us and we can come back in the spring. So that's his plan. That's what they do. They all get up, they leave, they go to the mountains. They don't really tell like the whole story of everything that happens there. They kind of give you like little bits and pieces, but basically they are in the mountains. They're ragged, they're hungry, they're tracked by Molor, and they're nearly basically backed against this mountain by Molor and a much larger army than they have, when Morath comes to the save and says like, I know this place, I think there's a mountain path, and he leads them to this mountain path, and they're able to escape from Molor's army and like escape from destruction at that point. So they kind of fast forward a little bit more time. They're in the woods still. They're looking for sustenance, and at this point they come across a big herd of these animals, and they come across another group hunting this herd. So they're gonna battle for this herd now. But when this other group hears the name of Kahless, they say, "Well, Kahless, the mighty fighter who wants to fight against Molor." And Kahless is like, "Well, okay, that's me. Let's get that herd," So, and then, of course, then you got Morath. Give him the side eyes again. He's like, "Kahless, you're lying. You're lying. You can't do that." So this part of the story I thought was really cool. I did really like the Morath and the Kahless balance that they had going on in the historic age of the story. So, this is going to be a long one, guys. Hang in there. So Morath and Kahless, in the mountains, they've met up with this other group of herders and have kind of said that they would work with them. They get their food. Now we're getting back to next part of the story is pretty rough. I think we're gonna switch gears here. We're gonna go back to the modern age, which I no longer have any notes for whatsoever. But since I just finished reading today, I'm sure I can tell you all very well what went down. Last we left our heroes in the modern age, the firebombing at the academy, right? So, awful, dishonorable act. But they use it to their advantage. They basically make it seem as if the firebomb took out all four of them. And they kind of go in disguise in the modern age story from this point on. And the whole point from this point on, is going to be to track down now. So now they know they're being targeted, and they can use this now to hopefully track down the people that are targeting them. So now what you have with the modern age stories is this kind of little following this trail of breadcrumbs, this trail of clues, one after another, to try to get to the conspiracy, the head of the conspiracy who's really in charge here. So, of course, Kahless knows like the one dude that he saw doing it, but they got to find out the rest of the people. So they're able to find some clues there, and now they have Kern working with them too. So you have this team of Kahless, Kern, Worf, and Picard working together on one of Kern's ships. And what I like about this part of the story is just very cool. Is they're kind of like just quickly beaming in and out in disguise to all these different locations, quickly tracking down the clues that they need to get to the next suspect, the next item, the next clue that they need to get to. And all the while, like they're doing it, and Kern's like using this wrist thing to beam them in and out. And I thought that was really cool. So, and just the idea of Picard with Worf and Kern and Kahless, it's like a really cool crew to be like rolling around, kind of like going through all these different mysteries. Basically, what they're able to do is use the material that was at the firebombing to track down who made the material, and then from that, who bought the material, and like who sold the material, and just this very long train of getting to the bottom of it, where they're finally able to get to this point where they have an idea of all the players involved. And the writer does a neat way of kind of showing it like in bits and pieces too, where like you're not getting the full story either. They're kind of keeping some of it like under, so you don't get the whole story about what they're finding out, but you're getting like enough bits and pieces to know that they're putting it together and they're moving it along. So I think all that was done really well, and I won't go into extreme detail on who they had to see and what they had to find, but suffice it to say they were able to work through all the clues, with the help of Kern, Kahless, and Picard and everybody's knowledge, and get to some very interesting action scenes in the end. So they get to this one relay substation where they need to download their communications network to access the kind of the conspirators' messages, basically. So they're there, and this is where you get a fun little action scene too, where they kind of beam in, and at first they're like, "Just give me this, I'm Governor Kern," but then he doesn't accept it, and then eventually they get into a little bit of a firefight where you got Picard and Kahless, and everybody's kind of battling together, and you have a nice little fun little firefight scene there that ends up with them getting the information they need and transporting away. And now they seem to have kind of all the pieces of the puzzle put together. And again, the way this book was done was these very short little chapters, and I'll show you exactly how short I'm talking about. Like here. So here's your chapter 30 of the Heroic Age, and then you got boom, 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 and look, there's already chapter 32. So these short little chapters kind of jumping back and forth between this story, but doing it very, very well. So now you have your modern age story. They've kind of got the conspiracy about wrapped up. Maybe time to spring the trap. So let's jump back to the Heroic Age and kind of wrap this story up here. Now this is where this one really gets very good. So they return to Lord Varrock's land, only to find everyone is dead. Molor has taken his revenge upon the village, somehow finding out that apparently that they had, given Kahless refuge there. So Kahless is distraught. He searches through the bodies, looking for the body of Kahless, not to be found, until Morath says, "Kahless," and points him to upstairs, where he finds the body of Kahless, brutally murdered. Kahless is devastated, and he smashes his sword into the ground and sends sparks into the air. Eventually, just like in a rage, goes out and mounts his beast, and then he just basically his plan in his mind is just that he's going to just drive his beast until he's dead, and that's it. He turns and looks behind him, and who does he see behind him? None other than Morath on his beast as well, chasing him, telling him to stop. Kahless won't do it. So eventually they get into a fight, and they stop, and they wrestle like crazy for like a long time until they're both freaking exhausted. And then they climb back on their beasts, and he takes off again, and they just keep going again. And Kahless is basically just like, "Stop, let me die. Enough, I just want to keep going till I die." And Morath is like, "No, you have something to do. You lied, and you have a promise to keep. You have something important to do." That's not exactly how he says it, but that's the meaning of it, And he keeps following and keeps dogging him all the way up into these mountains where, again, I think they wrestle again, and they wrestle again. And eventually, after a good bit of wrestling and following, Kahless kind of like gives up, and he's like, "Enough, finally, just kill me. I've had it. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to be this rebel." And then Morath shows him the way, the real honorable way, basically, and is like, "No, you can't die. You have a job to do." And he's like, "A life for a life." And basically, that he has. What Morath says to Kahless at this time is that it's his fault. It's his fault for what happened to Kahless. It's his fault for what happened to the village. And now he has to atone for it. And he has to make it right. And the only thing he can do to make it right is to fight against Molor and to be this rebel king that he kind of initially was thought to be, to be this person to take them away from this tyrant Molor. And he's convinced. Kahless is convinced. And they're able to, they feast on some ground nuts because they've not eaten in like 12 days. And they very slowly make their way back to the camp. Now, if you know anything about Klingon lore, this is the story of Kahless and his brother, who wrestled for 12 days because apparently Kahless's brother lied. And they wrestled for 12 days until Kahless made it right. But see, that this was the real story. Now, that was the legend. Now, the real story was Kahless was the liar. and Morath wrestled him into submission, right? But still, it's all the same thing. It's honor. Oh, this story was so good. Okay, so I'm going to have to get a little bit faster with this. Anyway, they go back and they decide that it's time. And they basically are at this point going to start gathering the people against the rebel, against the rebel, against the tyrant Molor. So that's what they begin to do. They send out their riders, they send out people that want to fight. They use the death of one of Kahless's kind of more close people to be like a martyr for the people. So in doing that as a martyr, he's able to use his death to really unite the people. And that's also like a really fun part of this Historic Age story, is just this speech that he gives at that point, which I think was kind of like almost a turning point for his movement, where he's got this like martyr dead in his hands, and he's challenging the crowd, and he's basically saying, now we're just going to show that we're weak and that we're just a group of not strong enough warriors to take care of this. And the crowd, just in their rage and in their anger, just kind of like roar back against it. And it was like the perfect like Klingon moment. They had to be like challenged at that moment, So they're challenged by his call, and they rise up against Molor, and they advance upon his citadel. And you have this fun little scene at the end here where they advance upon a citadel. They've got a battering ram, and they charge in successfully. They take everybody out. They're able to enter and batter into the keep. And it's just absolutely like intense kind of Klingon barbaric action going on at the end. Just a really fun and very well-written battle sequence that I think they did. And eventually, of course, Kahless and Morath are able to work their way through the initial battle, work their way through the keep, batter down the door to the keep, fight through the 24 elite warriors of Molor, batter the way up Molor's tower, fighting more and more warriors until they finally meet Molor, who is an old, decrepit man who has succumbed to a plague. I know, right? So you're expecting he's going to get this fierce final battle against the tyrant Molor, lightning striking, batless striking. But no, that's not what you get. Instead, you get this kind of decrepit Molor, where Kahless actually feels this little bit of kind of like, I don't know, like he doesn't want to kill him because he's a plague victim. Where's the honor in that? So he throws him his knife, and he's like, all right, you can kill yourself, or I'm going to let my people come in and just rip you limb from limb. So he's like, oh, that is the thing. But Molor, treacherous Molor as always, picks up the knife and throws it at Kahless. At the last minute, Morath jumps in the way, takes the knife meant for Kahless, and dies. Kahless, in a rage, takes his batlath, chops off the tyrant Molor's head, and shows it to the armies, saying basically, look, there's nothing left to fight for. The fight is over. The time is done. Man, really awesome way that this ended. Very unexpected. I did not see that coming that way at all. I was kind of looking for the final, like, climactic battle, between Kahless and Molor, but I really did like the way it turned out. It was very, very well done. So, man, Michael Jan Friedman writes a heck of a book, and he really did it here. And this is going on for a very long time, but I do have to keep talking about it because it was just that good. So, let's wrap it up here with the modern age finale. So they've got all the kind of conspirators figured out, they believe. So what they do is they find out a way to gather them all into one place. So in the final kind of chapter of the modern age theory, they're sneaking in to this important Klingon council members' house area, basically. And they're following behind Lomak, who's one of the conspiracy members, he's a member of the Klingon Defense Force. Anyway, Lomak is going to this house where they've gathered up all the members of the conspiracy. And once all the members of the conspiracy get there, they're like, Well, why'd you call me here? I didn't call you here. Why'd you call me here? It's a trap. And it is indeed a trap. So like that's when like they all run out and like basically they bust and be like, hey, we gotcha. We've got everything on this data chip right here that we got from the sensor relay station. It's got all your communiques and everything on it. So all the conspirators there are like, oh, we're busted. And basically like the head guy, Uhar or whatever, pulls out a disruptor, starts blasting, shoots a couple of Gowron's guards, because Gowron has come along to see if this is actually a thing that's happening. And it is. And now you have this kind of fun little battle to end up the modern age, where you have Worf charging and taking out this guy. And then that's Uhark. He takes out Uhark with the disruptor. A nice little battle there, knocks him out. And then you have Captain Picard chasing down two conspirators that are trying to run away. One of them happens to be the treacherous Lomak. And Kahless takes off after him. So then you kind of have this final little battle here of the modern age, where Picard is like taking out Lomak, and Kahless is taking out this other guy in this awesome Batleth battle, and he ends up getting him in the gut, and he lifts him up with his Batleth in the end and throws him down. The guy, like when he's like looking the other way, tries to get him in the heart awkwardly, and it stabs right into his betrothed Kayleen's special necklace thing that he gave her. So that was nice in the end. He was saved by that. So, man, there's so much that I missed out here on this book. But suffice it to say, it is such a well done, kind of like two-part story here. So, in the end, you have Kahless the Unforgettable is able to unravel the conspiracy, save the Empire with the help of Worf, Kurn, and Picard. And even though this scroll came out and has been authenticated as being a real scroll, because at the end of the Heroic Age story, it's revealed that Kahless is the one that wrote the scroll. And it's also revealed at the end of the Heroic Age story that Kahless, the video, or the knife that the original clone of Kahless was made from in the series, had the blood of not Kahless on it, but Morath. Dun dun dun. What a big twist, right, for the end of a book. So the character Kahless that appeared in the original, or the Next Generation and all that, was not actually the physical Kahless, but was a recreation of Morath. But in reality, Morath is Kahless's values. He's the actual Klingon honor system in real life, not the real Kahless. So, I mean, it all works out in the end. But anyway, wow. What a fun book. What a fun book to read. And if you are looking for something just to dig into that Klingon side of Star Trek, Kahless is the read for you. And at 33 minutes, I'm just going to say we're going to end the month of honor right here. It's been a fun month full of Klingon adventures, and we'll see where next month will take us. But as always, I want to wish everyone glory to you and your house. Qapla'. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.